This is Brandy Crisipoli, and she is the president with Life Recaptured, which is a human trafficking awareness group. And this is Carl
Kretschmann, yep.
And he is part of the group, but I'm not sure where he fits in because I've never met him before.
My wife and I are co-directors of awareness right now.
Okay, well, good. Okay, so y'all just have at it. It's your leisure.
Okay. Appreciate you. Thank you. Should I stand like this so you can hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's nice for those I have not met to be able to meet you today. How many have heard me speak before that's here? Okay.
Oh, wow.
Some of you that do not know why I started this is because my baby sister was trafficked and she didn't make it. And we did not know what grooming was, so it wasn't something that we were looking for, but it was someone that we had known for many years that groomed my sister and sold her. And so when we found out that human trafficking was involved and that my sister had not made it, it would really tore our family up. It turned us upside down. We all were saying, why didn't you notice it? Why didn't you? But a lot of people don't know what human trafficking is, and that's the reason I'm glad that Carl is here today, because we have this idea that human trafficking is either being thrown in a van or in the back of a truck and going and being chained up. And some of that does happen. But a lot of what happens with human trafficking every day, you're going to learn from Carl today. So I'm just going to leave you with this so that you can understand how real this is. The last girl that we picked up that is in outreach right now had been thrown into a dumpster. She was gasoline down from the top of her head to the soles of her feet. They took a lipstick, put it on her face like a clown, and was getting ready to set her on fire when someone saw her, called the cops, and then they put her in the hospital for a while, and she came to where we are. These girls that we get are not like having one girl. There's many different personalities inside of one person, because to survive, they have multiple personalities. So I just want you to know that for me and my foundation, it's really important to have someone like Carl and his wife working with us to go around to let people know that we're training you, that Brevard County is a hot spot. One other girl, before I sit down, I think you guys heard me tell you, this was one of the first, I got a call from a detective, and he said, we have a girl we've been trying to take everywhere. Nobody will take her. And I said, why? And he said, because she's got a liability. I said, all my girls are liabilities. He said, she's blind. And I said, was she blind from birth? And he said, no, her trafficker beat her head so many times that it detached her retina. We tried to get the Blind Institute to see if they could, attach them. It will never happen. She had a bald spot where they pulled her hair. When she was taken, it was at the age of 14. When we went and got her, she was 31. She was with a group of people called a stable. And so this girl, when I met her, weighed about 80 pounds, no teeth, and hardly any hair. Her parents hadn't seen her since she was 14. That experience changed my life. To see a girl that had been held hostage for that many years, that her life was taken from her. We couldn't keep her, we tried. She was like an animal. She wanted to eat her food on the floor. She escaped by taking off all of her clothes, going out to where she could hear traffic, and being naked, and someone recognized that this person needed help, and that's how they went and got her. And so she and about 4 of the girls testified against this group, and now they're in prison. But that still doesn't change the fact of what she'll never have a life again. But our job is to try to bring them in and help them integrate back into society. So thank you for being here. Thank you for having your heart open when he's talking to you, because it's so important to learn what the facts are about human trafficking. I live it every day. And every day that I see it makes me wonder what my sister went through. So we love that we can have men that understand this is real and that we can change it one girl at a time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brandy. Strap your seatbelts on. This is Human Trafficking 101. I'm going to cover a lot. There will be a test at the end. Just kidding. Yeah, the purpose of this is to really define the problem so that you can understand what you need to know as a man in Brevard County and what Life Recaptured does and then what you can do. So this is important. I'll show this slide again at the end. You can take a picture of it. But hopefully I'll get you to the point today where you'll be somewhat comfortable that if you see something, say something. So the question is, what are you going to see? And I'm going to go over that. So we're just going to pop through a whole bunch of information. The first thing you need to understand is what is trafficking. All right, there's two key things in the U.S. Trafficking Victims Protection Act. So it is the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act, in which the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion. So the two key elements that make it trafficking, it has to be an exchange of value, an exchange of some sort of commerce like money, and there's also force, fraud, or coercion involved. Without those, it could be something else like exploitation or prostitution. Those two make it trafficking. There is one exception, and that is if the person who's trafficked is under 18 years of age. There is no such thing as a child prostitute. So it doesn't have to be forced or coerced. If there is a child that is involved in prostitution, it is considered human trafficking. Where is it? It's in all 50 states. And you can see where the hot spots are, and you can see our little area in central eastern coast of Florida. It is a hot spot. Florida ranks third according to calls from the Human Trafficking Hotline, behind California and Texas. So we have a very busy trafficking operation, both law enforcement and traffickers in our state. And what about Brevard? We have some of the key ingredients right here that make it a hot spot. We have the port, and we have I-95 and private airports, so we can get a lot of people, both customers and traffic victims, in and out of the area under the radar. And just as importantly, we have a lot of entertainment. And so if you've probably heard on the news where the Super Bowl is, it's a hot spot for trafficking. We've got all these venues that bring people down for entertainment, people with money, and a lot of them spend it on the wrong things. We're used to thinking trafficking is occurring in massage parlors and on the street and back alleys and whatever. But the statistics from the Bureau of Justice and the FBI are suggesting it's going deep underground now. About 87% is happening in residences and in hotels. So that's a direction that's been changing. A little bit still in the public transportation areas, outdoors, streets, rest areas. And not so much in the retail establishments. And of course, as with any government data, there's always unknowns. In terms of the business and its profitability, the most profitable business is counterfeiting and intellectual property theft, followed by drugs. Sex trafficking is third. The best government estimates right now, it's about $173 billion a year. The difference between sex trafficking and the first two is, for the first two, you got to have a commodity that you're actually flowing. So you got to receive a commodity, get rid of it. You always got to keep that product coming and going. But with trafficking, you can reuse your object. People are reusable. By the way, 173 billion equals the profit of Alphabet, the owner of Google, and NVIDIA combined. So the first and the fifth largest U.S. profitable businesses, trafficking is about the same. So every 30 seconds, a person becomes a trafficking victim in the world. You can actually take vacations for sex, and Americans do that, by the way. This is why it's so lucrative. One victim can make up to $1.5 million or so per year for their trafficker. That's just, that boggles my mind to see that. But they're reusable. Like I said, Americans lead all other nationalities in consumption. So not only in America, but they can take vacations to Thailand, wherever, for sex, for a week or two or whatever. And Americans have the money to do that. So we outspend all other nations. 1 out of every 150 people in the world is trafficked on any given day. You will, at some point, if you haven't already, run into a trafficked person, whether you know it or not, especially in a hot spot like we've got. So who do traffickers target? Well, 6 to 1, it's women over men, or girls over boys. Ages, half of all people will be trafficked by the time they're 18. So they really target teenagers who are the most vulnerable. In many of the ways, we'll get into a little bit of the trafficking and grooming tactics that they use. Hard to believe, kids as young as 6, 7, 8, 9 years old can get trafficked. Interesting that the stat here for boys is larger than girls for the real young ones. And that speaks to the LGBTQ problem that we have. But it is a lot of ages. Again, it's primarily younger people. 2 million children are trafficked every year. 1 in 10 children is sexually abused. At our mentor organization, Sail of Freedom, over in Sarasota, they report most of their survivors were sexually abused as young as 3 years old. That's a problem. Runaways, kids at risk, 1 out of 3 is solicited for sex within 48 hours. Most all are solicited for sex at some point if they don't get rescued. Average runaway is 16 years old. We tend to think of traffic victims as primarily poor, immigrants, people who are out on the street, but it's all socioeconomic levels. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be Brandy's younger sister. We know that. One of the survivors that went through the program over at Sail had a teacher mother and a police chief dad. So it can happen to anybody. Some victims can be sold up to 40 times in a 24-hour period. 15 to 20, 40 in 24 hours. How does that happen? Drugs. Sometimes the victims come in with a drug abuse problem. If they don't have it, they will develop a drug abuse problem courtesy of their trafficker. The victim is forced to pay for the drugs, but the drugs cost more than the profit that the trafficking victim is making from the sex. So they're always in debt to the trafficker. The trafficker, therefore, can have power and control over the victim because they are never out of debt. They also will use tattoos and barcode tattoos, or even insert computer chips underneath the skin of the victim so that they can track how much money is owed. It's a very commercial, cruel act. So yeah, a reusable commodity, and that's, yeah. Average 7-year lifespan for a traffic victim. The lady that Brandy mentioned that went until she was 31 is a real anomaly. Yeah, after 7 years, suicide rates increase dramatically, or their bodies just give out. So you have a fairly short window of time to rescue these. And as she said, there's so many problems that they're so traumatized that it's a real challenge, and you need groups like Life Recaptured and the Safe Home to bring them back into the real world.
Excuse me, is it organized crime that's doing this? Who's doing it?
It's usually organized groups, not necessarily tied to the mafia, but yes, organized crime is involved, as well as gangs. Yeah. Yep. Okay, let's look at what the traffickers look like. For the victims, the largest person who's a trafficker is already known to the victim. Somebody they know, a friend of the family that they've known for a long time. It could also be a direct family member or an intimate partner, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. So those are primarily people who traffic the victims. They already know them. Could be single mothers also. For women, for some reason, there's a fair number of strangers that show up. So again, federal statistics, not always the case that we have all the data. Traffickers, depending on what you look at, the UN for their global convictions reports about 38% of the traffickers are women. In Florida specifically, for cases involving minors, it's about 24%. And for the federal cases, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, it's 15 to 32%. So
do you think that's forced by men, though?
It's, yeah, in some cases, I'm sure, but not necessarily.
That most of the people in our safe home were sold by their mother. almost everybody we have in our stable, because, you know, maybe they either have a drug problem or an alcohol problem, and they'll sell their children to get what they want. So,
Good. Because otherwise DCF will take them.
right.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Starts all over again.
Well, let me introduce you to Emma. She's 10 years old, according to her profile on Snapchat and YouTube. So this is kind of the vision that we hear in the news and stuff about trafficking. We tend to think of, you know, a middle-aged man, even though there's still a lot of women that traffic. But he was a registered sex offender in Brevard County, on probation for possession of child sexual assault materials. Was convicted in 2019. He was still doing his online trolling and trafficking, and they caught him doing that, and he's sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for that.
So they're impersonating kids.
They're impersonating kids online. Yeah. Yep. So what does the grooming process look like? Typically offers are made that are too good to be true. If you're in a traumatic situation at home or whatever, you don't think about this stuff. I mean, we can think logically because we're not stressed and whatever. But typically things like modeling opportunities, love bombing is a common tactic for recruiting for lots of different things besides trafficking. Giving unusual gifts or maybe lots of gifts. Our son was 18, his employer, his boss was trying to traffic him, was giving him gifts. Took him to a conference up in Albany, New York, and had a hotel room and made his move, and my son said, called the police and, you know, avoided it. But yeah, giving gifts, that's out of place. Like you wouldn't expect that kind of stuff. Too good to be true. For kids at risk, primarily, it's just meeting basic needs. So physical needs like food, water, shelter, clothing, or emotional needs like safety, love, and acceptance. Again, traffickers are experts at getting in and understanding their victims, potential victims, and finding ways to manipulate them. Finally, the introduction of porn. If the kids haven't already been exposed to it, many of them have. Let's talk about that for just a moment. As the gateway drug, what porn does to the boys and girls, it desensitizes them to sexual acts. And we're talking about the violent sex, rape, coercion that porn contains, showing women as submissive objects, and often have child actors. So exposing the potential victims or victims to that desensitizes them to that type of abusive behavior. And of course that creates the dopamine boost. That dopamine boost, our bodies get addicted to that, and that therefore fuels a desire to seek real life experiences. So they want to go outside of the world of watching it to participating in it. That's the natural reaction of the brain. And that cycle then begins to fuel the market for trafficking. So this is a very brief look at what porn does, but that's why it's dangerous. Okay? It is a precursor to marketing. What it does, it really teaches the expected behavior to the victims.
I just heard statistics of the amount of porn that's in the church.
It isn't any different than what's outside of the church.
Yeah, I know, but that's hard to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, one of the
on overdrive to attack us.
one of the churches that supports us just had one of their assistant pastors busted in the church for child porn possession. So
It's a big problem.
yeah. Yeah. Yep, we're going to be up there in September visiting them. Yeah, so it breaks down the resistance of the victims and it inspires more people to begin grooming others. So it's just a vicious cycle that begins. But porn is a huge, yeah, and it really sets deviant sex as the new normal for these kids, because that's what they're going to be forced to do. Yeah, 2/3 of traffickers recruit online, just like Emma, right? And they're smart, because our kids are online. A Pew poll from 2024-2025, our teenagers are spending all of their discretionary time online, 7.5 hours a day. If they're sleeping 9 hours a day, they're at school 8 hours a day, 7.5. They're online the rest of it. It's crazy. And then we've got kids under 2 spending 2 hours, 2 to 4 years, 2 hours online. Online!
It's because they're living a life of business, parents don't have time to interact. They throw a computer screen at them and say, here, and then they don't monitor it.
They don't monitor it. 95%, I'm surprised that number's not higher, of US teens have a smartphone. 48% say they're online nearly constantly, even during school. So yeah, there's an online epidemic, and that's where the traffickers are. What are they using? Yeah, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitch. Having lived in China, having been the security person for my missions organization, I don't know why people use TikTok. It collects everything. I've got a list, I won't go over it, but if you want to know it,
I've never used
later.
it. Mine will never go.
It's never going on my phone because it's a backdoor to the Chinese government to steal your information and sell it. But our kids love it. Man, millions and millions are using it. So, and they're all being used by traffickers. Gaming, I'm sure you recognize your kids or grandkids are playing these games. They're popular games. They are places where traffickers are too. Pretending to be kids, chatting with your grandkids, posing to be somebody else and trying to trick them. So it's the popular games. I'm not even going to talk about the dating apps that our kids shouldn't be using because that's what's being used. So there is a red line that we don't want our kids to cross. That's why I got a red line up there, and it's the private messaging apps. So your WhatsApp, your Signals, Telegrams. When a trafficker has been grooming a child online in a public forum and they ask to go to a private chat, whether it's one of the private chat groups on or private chat tools on the game, or whether it's one of these, that's a big red flag. Because that's a no-no. You haven't heard of BitChat yet, it's coming. It's being started by Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter, and it's going to bypass any central service system. It's going to be peer-to-peer, phone-to-phone, no way to get in and intervene. So when that one hits the market, the traffickers are going to be all over that one. So we have to be vigilant because where the children are, so are the traffickers, guaranteed. It's just like playgrounds when we were little, right? You know, don't take candy from strangers.
At least we have a government that cares now.
They can't get rid of TikTok.
Yeah, no, but you know, we've got this mindset of our even millennials and our Gen Zers. It's like they're 15 seconds of fame that they want. It's like they're throwing everything out there online. They're throwing pictures up that seem innocent, but all that metadata that comes with the pictures, the geo-tracking and stuff, the traffickers are using. It's easy for them to get. It's easy to get the tools to get all that stuff. Go on the dark web and find it, no problem. And they're going to spend countless hours trying to groom potential victims. That's what they do. You saw the money involved. If I make a friend on Facebook, right, and I'm a teenager, I'm a 10-year-old, and I don't have a filter that says, gee, I don't know this person, but they seem friendly, and you know, my friend recommended or whatever, in 30 days, that person, that young child, will be willing to go meet the trafficker face to face. 30 days. And we have up to 100,000 kids in America who are US citizens that are trafficked every year. The window is short, and this is something that as we were parents, we didn't have to deal with this stuff. But for us to be able to teach our kids and grandkids about this stuff, we actually need to get involved and do it. So, because I know it's a big topic for parents, and a couple of things I'll mention here are going to be problematic. So, yeah, families have to equip themselves. Just limiting screen time isn't enough. Doesn't take a trafficker long to manipulate somebody online. And you can't rely on just installing parental controls because kids will find ways around them. Yeah, exactly. So I'm developing a class on that. I'm hoping to have it ready by September. And I'd be happy to come share it with anybody that wants to see that. So I want to be able to at least give references to tools and stuff that parents can use to cover all these areas so that we can really help our kids learn about what online safety looks like. All right, so how can we tell if a child is being groomed? You have to look for behavioral shifts. So the first one is a sudden desire for secrecy. You'll see that. Maybe they'll have a sudden romantic entanglement. They'll be all confused about a relationship with somebody that they may have just met online. Unusual meme usage. This is where it's going to get a little bit tricky for parents. Like KYS, what does that mean? Kill yourself. Uncle, daddy, auntie are typical terms a groomer would use. Hey, just call me uncle. There's a red flag right there. Groomer humor is simply making jokes. Groomers will make jokes actually about grooming to desensitize the potential victim. That's a way that actually works. You use it, joke about it, it becomes normal, and next thing you know, they're trafficked. Other signs, they may get into animal cruelty or self-harm, could get physical. They could become irritable, withdraw socially, or all of a sudden they're not playing, dealing with the kids out in the real world, they're just spending their time on the computer, so you might see a change in that. All are signs that your child, grandchild might be being groomed. So we talked a little about victim statistics. Let's talk a little bit more about what victims look like in real life, some of the indicators. And I want to stress that there is no single indicator here that I'll present that's necessary to prove human trafficking. So you got to kind of recognize the combined signs, and it's just a first step to identify possible victims. But here's some of the traits that you can observe in potential victims. Maybe they appear submissive or fearful, or they're avoiding eye contact. Are they in the presence of an older boyfriend or girlfriend? Is their companion a controlling individual? Are they not allowed to speak for themselves? Some pretty obvious signs if you're observing somebody. Maybe they're not in control of their money or their identification. Typically, those things happen to people who are trafficked. You can also observe maybe they're traveling with few or no personal items such as purses, luggage, bags, anything. They've just got what's on their clothes. Maybe there's signs of physical abuse. Maybe there's signs of a health problem, malnutrition, or they're dressed inappropriately for their age or for their location, like they're wearing a winter coat here in Florida on a summer day, or no coat in Minnesota in January. Maybe they have some unusual tattoos or what we call branding marks. So some examples of that, you'll see there's a barcode. Crowns are also a sign that could be the identification of the trafficker. Some people have had the trafficker's name tattooed on their eyelids, tattooed inside their mouths. Yeah, and then some of the grooming words, daddy's little, you know, whatever. They're just kind of unusual tattoos. Most people get tattoos to tell a story, right? And they tend to be artistic. And well, I don't find hardly any of those artistic, especially the dollar sign ones. So yeah, tattoos can indicate age or race groups, victims who don't have children, or they may just indicate a particular trafficking ring. So if you interact with one, their story might be rehearsed or inconsistent. Maybe they lack a knowledge of their whereabouts, maybe lying about their age, maybe they make reference to traveling frequently to different towns, and they might not be able to or want to, more likely, explain an unusual tattoo branding mark that they might have. So again, you have to look at multiple indicators, but trust your gut, all right? It's better to be wrong and report it than to not report it, okay?
Yeah, that was my, like, it's like tricky, right? So like say you're at a hotel or something and you see something that's odd, like just confront somebody or, you know.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I mean, what do you do if you realize you might be talking to a victim, right?
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is assess the safety of the situation, right? Chances are you're not going to want to intervene because there's probably a pimp around, right? The trafficker. But if you sense there's an imminent danger, call 911. Or if you're in a hotel and there's security, you know, do both. Get a hold of security because they're already on site. And explain to them, you know, what you've observed. Because they're going to be...
I've seen things in the past that make me wonder.
Yeah.
You know, like seeing kids with people that didn't look like them. And I'm like, that's strange.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And that's when you need to say somebody. But do that. Assess the situation before. And then certainly call the National Trafficking Hotline too. And they'll call local authorities if you haven't already done so. But that's
If
the...
you're wrong, you're wrong.
If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Right.
Right? It's not going to hurt the police to come do a welfare check on somebody.
Right.
Right? They know how to do that.
And age differentiation is a major
Yes.
sign too.
Yes.
So you see a 50-year-old,
Yeah, yeah.
a 17-year-old girl,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
unless it's a granddaughter,
Yeah.
whatever. But,
yeah.
yeah.
But if you feel safe intervening, or not intervening, but talking to the person, you might ask them if they feel safe. That'd be the first question I'd ask. Or ask them if anybody's ever hit them or forced them to do something they didn't want to do. Because if they've been trafficked, yeah, that answer will be yes. Who's got their ID or their passport? Or have they been hurt or threatened to be hurt if they tried to leave? So again, basic questions. If you have the opportunity and you feel safe, you can start that and confirm your observations. So, but you need to let them know that they have rights. Right? They're victims with rights and they're not alone.
Yes.
That's important. That's a bridge builder right there. And you can potentially help them be that bridge to get help from the police or security, whatever. So, I'm going to move right on. We can do some questions at the end. I think there'll be time. Life Recaptured and what we do. We have the only phased program safe home in Brevard County. So as Brandy mentioned, these girls, some of them will come out with multiple personalities. They're all coming out with heavy trauma and responses to protect themselves from all the different traumas that they've got. They're just complicated. And it takes a phased program to be able to get them the help that they need. So if you want to hear more about, please just stay and we can talk about that at the end. It is a year to year and a half restoration program that includes professional counseling, pastoral care, basic life skills. A lot of them never learned the life skills. They got trafficked at a young age. They didn't know how to wash dishes or wash their clothes or something at home.
This is like a secret location here in the market.
Yeah, it's
I kind of know because I remember volunteering and pressure washing at that location. I won't say where, but
yeah. No, we keep that under wraps. It's a need-to-know basis only.
I was going to say, since we're recording, just be extra careful with that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
already know, though.
Yeah. Yep. But we work them towards full-time employment, and if they need medical help, they get it. And there's a whole lot more. But yeah, that's the primary purpose for Life Recaptured. We know that with this phased program, it's an 87% success rate, and without a phased program, 91% will return to the life. It makes a difference. And these are from organizations that have a good long track record using this type of program, and we're mentored by one of the best. So, but we are also designed for awareness. So if you haven't been to the Connections Cafe on US 1 in Cocoa, they've got yummy stuff for breakfast and lunches Wednesday through Saturday. And we also have a boutique on the Courtenay Parkway. So upscale, but gently used furniture, clothing, and accessories. And tea parties. So you guys are using this for a venue. We've got a room there for tea parties. I know maybe it'd be a coffee party more for men, but if you wanted to do some awareness, that's a free location to use. Volunteers work on that. Farmers Market on Saturdays. So if you want to take a picture of that just to have the addresses, feel free to do that. I'll give you a couple seconds. So it costs $54,000 per year for a survivor in the safe home. So it isn't cheap. We do hire professional help for these ladies. Most all of us who work here are volunteers. There's a couple of paid positions with the safe home to lead that, but we are in the process of trying to find more supporters to help with that. So if that's something that you're drawn to, yeah, you can become a financial partner. And even if it's $50 a month or something, it all helps because it all adds up. As a missionary for 20 years, I've been on support for 20 years. Some of our best givers are $20, $50 a month, and that makes up a lot of our supporters. That's how the Lord provides. If you have items to donate to the boutique, just schedule drop-offs. They don't generally take walk-ins, but they like to be scheduled because they're all volunteers running it, and it's not open all the time. And then you can volunteer, so let's talk about some of those opportunities. In the safe home, I know men can't really do that because the women are triggered And so we really can't be present there. We can schedule things in if there's like maintenance and stuff, property care to be done, and you've got a skill to do that, then they can schedule you in to do that. You can certainly be involved in that. They hold theme dinners in the kitchen, and so you, your wife can come in and host a theme dinner and have dinner with them. And to have an example of a healthy couple is actually a healing thing. That's really good. And we're looking for people who can teach art and music and do some tutoring with the ladies too. Again, mainly women for those particular roles. You can also volunteer in the Connections Cafe with food prep, serving food, organizing events. We oftentimes do these awareness trainings in the cafe. And you can volunteer at the boutique as well to receive items, organize, clean, help with sales, help organize tea parties, and some of the gardening work that we do there also is food for the Safe Home. So we can use your help in that area as well. Certainly foremost, you guys can be praying. With this knowledge, whatever you can take away from this, you can certainly pray for what we do and invite us, help us get the word out. So, you know, at your church, your home group here, you know, any workplace event, civic organizations, I'm here. My wife and I are here. She's not here because she's got a medical appointment today, but we're here to get the word out. So, yeah, invite us in, and we'll be glad to come. You can help us bring this into the light. And as I said earlier, this is the human trafficking hotline, the different ways. Please take a picture of that so that you know it is. You can search it online. It'll be your #1 hit as well. But that's a great organization. And put it in your contacts. And here's the little trick. If you put an A in front of the human trafficking hotline, it'll come up at the very top of your contacts list. Okay? So do that little trick. And then you're free to take a picture of this page as well with Life Recaptured. You can get more information online in terms of volunteering. That's where you donate through as well, liferecaptured.org. And you can reach us all on phone. There's a directory if you're looking for a specific person as well. You can reach us through that. So, questions?
Well, Carl, can I just share one thing though? I want to, and I can say this on the videos on.
Can you come over next to him?
Okay.
We can't hear it.
We had one girl that we brought in that had been trafficked by her mother and by her brother. And the girl was with us for about a year and, I don't know, year and 4 months. She was more in the hospital than she was in our safe home. The instruments that they had used on this girl, the things that they had done to her body was just so inhumane that she couldn't overcome to be healthy again. She had never been shown the love that most people are shown. When we took her to the hospital, it was the very first day she came, or the second, I can't remember. And my vice president just covered her feet up. And she began to cry, and the bed was shaking, and we thought, oh, she's upset because we're touching her. But that wasn't what it was. She had never been touched with love, never. Just to have her feet covered changed something inside of her heart. But what happened was she died. And the reason I'm sharing this is because you look at the numbers that it takes to take care of these girls. She had no one. We paid for her funeral. We paid for everything that was done for her because there was no family to come forward to do anything. And you know, that costs money. We loved her while she was alive. We took care of her while she was alive, and then we took care of the situation when she passed away. So I just wanted to let you know that it's not all sometimes things you smile at. But here was the good part. She never knew Christ. She never wanted to hear about Christ because when a mother and a brother sell you and abuse you, you know, you think, where was God, right?
Yeah.
But we introduced her to Jesus Christ. She wanted to get baptized. And we take our girls to church every week. We don't push God down their throat. We try to show God. And we do have Bible study. She accepted Christ. My pastor got a baby pool because she couldn't climb up the stairs and baptized her, and 2 weeks later she went on to be with Christ. So that to me is, no matter how many girls you see, we can rejoice in that.
Amen.
So I just wanted to share that with you, and
Thank
you have
you.
questions then.
you do this in schools?
We got voted in every school, but it's taking a little while to be able to get the curriculum the way that they want it. They have certain rules and things that they want. But even while they're doing that, we're gonna be working with Carl and Debbie to try to start in some of the private schools while we're waiting until they can get into the public schools. That's the playground for the
Public
trafficker.
schools.
Like,